Welcome to our technical ramp up series. Today we're going to talk about how you can ramp up your agency's network architecture. And the reason this is really important is because the traditional way of delivering applications and IT services isn't really as effective as it used to be before. Especially for agencies that are adopting or have adopted cloud services and SaaS applications. That's presenting new challenges on how to access and deliver those things. Now with COVID, employees and contractors are more mobile than they've ever been before. And so now the attack surface has changed. It's different. It's much bigger than it was before, especially at locations that we just have no control over. We don't control the sorts of things that are happening within an end user's network. And so the way that we approach cybersecurity is changing, and many agencies are looking at ways of doing that, like zero trust, right, as a way to continuously monitor threats and security and take action accordingly based off of the threat level of that individual or system. And at Citrix, we've been doing many of these things for a long time. SASE now, our Gartner now has a name for that, and it's called SASE, so Secure Access Service Edge. And what this really is it breaks away from the traditional castle and moat architecture used by agencies, and it really puts security at the edge as a single integrated product. And there's a couple of sides to this. The first side is really around security. Security is really around identity. It's around access. It's around that continuous monitoring of activity on the network. So that way you can take a proactive action or react in a very quick way to those threats and that changing security posture. But it's more than just security. It's also availability, right? So we look at it from a networking perspective. We look at it from a performance, end user experience, right? Are we providing a great user experience regardless of where the user is? Do we have a highly available access to these applications, right? So if there is congestion on whatever network that the user is at, how are we reacting to it, right? Are we still able to provide connectivity? And this is especially challenging when more and more applications are coming away from the data center and are moving to the cloud. And so today you're going to hear a little bit more about the challenges that we hear from our other customers, and we're going to actually show you a demo of one of our SASE capabilities. So Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Jose. I really appreciate it. So as we start to talk about security today in this session, I think it's really important that we understand the security journey, right? You know, kind of how a lot of the security started, how applications and how things were delivered to our end users, what their demands were, and kind of how they've evolved, over the last 10 years, and probably how they've evolved so rapidly over the last, 12 to 18 months with all the challenges and things we've had in that period of time. So what you kind of see in front of you, and traditionally this is how things were primarily delivered, was through a main office, right? And at that main office, and this is still done to this day for the most part, but we had a data center at that main office where it was hosting our applications and our data. Most things were client server driven with a backend database. Most of the things stayed within house, right? There wasn't a huge demand out there for accessing the internet, if you will. But one of the things that we did, and we still do very well today, is we work on protecting that perimeter, right? So we've made some significant investments in a pretty strong firewall or firewalls within our organizations to really secure that perimeter, secure the traffic, either you're in or you're out, and we do a whole lot of things around that. But then things started to change. We started to look at the centralization of IT, which has become really, really popular, definitely in the last 5 years, is rather than what we used to have with the branch offices, if you will, kind of each doing their own thing, and we had a little bit of IT sprawl, we started saying, okay, all these branch offices that we have out there, we want these branch offices to backhaul everything through the main office, right? So we would install T1s and MPLS circuits out there in these offices that were sized for the client server-based applications. So instead of hosting things locally in those branches, we started to host things out within those main offices into that data center. And with a lot of this at the time, 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, there wasn't a big demand for internet. So we typically backhauled those internet connections through those main offices, from those branch offices to the main office, and then out to the internet. And at that time, we started putting in what I like to call the security appliance, right? Some type of appliance to either allow or disallow people in, right? We used whitelists, or we used little black lists represented by those dots. Well, this started working pretty well for a while, but the world started changing fast. We introduced all kinds of technologies like iPads, started to become more business friendly, and we introduced more web-based applications, things like Facebook's and Instagram, right, started to become more popular. We started to realize that we can connect with our customers, or even end users, through these types of means, through Facebook, through the Instagrams of the world. So now we had to start thinking about providing access to these things for people. The demand for internet increased. Well, as all these things changed that demand for internet, now we're starting to see a bigger change around, okay, how do I provide access to this? Because all these T1 circuits that we installed, they were not prime time for internet access, right? And lead time on getting additional bandwidth and the cost of that started to go through the roof. So what did we start thinking about doing? Well, in a lot of cases, we would install a little DSL connection here, right? So we would put broadband or DSL, business class, of course, because it was dramatically cheaper than a secure T1. And what we did is we simply installed, maybe additional firewall around this, because now we're a little bit public facing. We have another point of presence. And we would also put in one of our security appliances, obviously not as beefy, blacklists and whitelists, of course. And its primary job was just to control people getting out to the internet, because we're seeing a greater increase in demand for it, right? Social media is driving organizations to sell products out there, or in the case of government, it's a really good way for us to connect with the public. Well, as we started to do this, those security appliances, we started having to do this in multiple locations, because, word catches on and demand started increasing. So we're putting in all these appliances in all these particular locations, right? So now we're getting a little bit of hardware sprawl, right? Now we have, not only do we have security appliances, but now we're having to put a little bit more powerful firewalls around each of these locations. And we're also looking at investing in, hardware and software to manage all of these appliances and all these solutions, right? Because the demands are there. And we're increasing complexity in our networks. So as all this complexity and all these things increased, we start to see, even in today's world, even 12 to 18 months ago, a greater demand, right? What are we focused on now? It's remote work. It's, how do I connect my end user over here who might be working at home? I need to get them access into this environment. And, through deployment of various different types of technologies, whether that was a traditional VPN technology for end users, or maybe we started looking at different Citrix solutions, either way, all of them required some type of increase in internet access, right? Whether we're coming in over here through a traditional Citrix virtual apps and desktops, which we'll just call CVAM, right? We're providing access in there. But as you can see, what's important about this is the complexity is growing, right? The demands are changing so rapidly that we're trying to keep up. And probably even furthermore, what adds a little bit of complexity in our security and the really increasing that attack surface, and that's definitely something we want to keep an eye on, is this. Public clouds, right? We have the AWSs, we have the Googles, we have the Azures of the world, right? And there's a whole lot of other public clouds, of course. But we start to have these, right? And what are we doing up there? We're looking at infrastructure as a service. We may be looking at desktops as a service. SaaS-based software is starting to become the norm, because people are trying to get out of that business of managing that data center that we have in-house, right? Those costs are pretty significant. So with all this complexity, now we're starting to figure out, how do we control internet access for end users, at home? How do we control internet access for people out in AWS, Google, and Azure, right? Do we put more of these security appliances out here? Do we send people home with these? Is two-factor authentication just enough? We're starting to see that it's not. So with this big complex environment that we have today, because it's evolved so fast, we need to really rethink this problem. We really need to think about a different way to tackle this. And Citrix has some really great solutions around our Citrix Secure Internet Access that we're going to talk a little bit about today. And we're going to talk about how we've kind of rethought that problem and how we can provide a better, simpler way that still gives employees the type of access that they need without affecting their user experience, but still yet gives IT departments and IT staff that comfort and that level of security and insight that they need into these environments to make sure that we're doing things securely. And of course, we're meeting all those demands. So next, we're going to do a little bit of a demo for you guys and kind of show you how we can kind of tackle this for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So like Steve mentioned, Citrix Secure Internet Access is a comprehensive suite of solutions that helps you ensure your customer success needs while giving you enterprise level security. So you get to choose how sassy you want to be. Now, if everything that Steve said makes sense or it adds up, but you don't know how it fits into your business needs, let's ask Emma to explain it, shall we? Meet Emma. Emma is an employee at a large agency. She used to work from the office before the pandemic, and since the pandemic, much like everybody else, she's now a remote employee. Her agency allows for her to have BYOD devices, so she has her own BYOD device and she works off of it. Now, if you look at this device, she has her enterprise grade software on it, she has her applications, whatever she needs to get her work done, it's all available to her. Now, what she doesn't know is that this device is actually being protected by Citrix Secure Internet Access. So what they've done is they've taken her external facing IP. If you look at that IP, this IP is essentially being tagged into your Citrix Secure Internet Access or CSI service, and basically everything that's going to happen here on this device is protected. She just doesn't know about it. Right. So she's having a normal work day just like every day. She's started her work, she's had her coffee, she does her few things, she's done email, and now she was looking at her phone and she goes, oh, I have photos that I need to upload. So let me try this new software called mega.io that one of my friends told me, or her friends told her. So she looks at it, and for some reason she got redirected to Citrix ShareFile. Now, as I said, she doesn't know that this particular device is being protected by CSIA. So what happened is she was redirected because her company or her agency doesn't want her to upload data to a software or to an application which is not permitted by the agency itself. They want to have control over what data gets uploaded from this device into the service. So Citrix ShareFile, which is your enterprise level security, it provides you with enterprise level security on what data gets uploaded and how it gets uploaded. That's what her agency has permitted. So that's where she got redirected. Someone's like, fine, all right, I can't upload, I don't know what happened here, but apparently I can't access mega.io on this device. She's like, fine, let me start doing something else. So she wants to start browsing for other information, and one of her colleagues told her about this thing called DuckDuckGo, and she doesn't know what it is, but she's like, that sounds weirdly interesting, let me try and reach into it. So this is just a browser, and normally when you actually start accessing a browser, it should open directly, but for some reason it's creating a secure connection. And she's looking at this, she's like, it looks different, I don't know why, but it looks different, but looks like a browser, so fine, I think I'm ready to go. But what she doesn't know is CSIA redirected her browser. It is integrated with, so DuckDuckGo was integrated with Citrix Secure Browsing Services. So whatever happens in this case scenario, whatever she decides to browse is now protected. If she closes out this session, essentially the data won't be retained, and so on and so forth. So it just makes it that much more secure. You're actually defining what your end user sees. You're defining how their browsing experience looks like. Now the only way she actually knows this has gone through that is if you look at this URL. So it actually went through cloud.com, which is your Citrix service. So alright, but her browsing experience didn't change much, so she's fine, she's happy, she's like, alright, at least I could access this. Now she does her emails, she does more of whatever needs to be done work-wise, and then she's like, alright, now I need to do something else. I kind of need a break. And much like all of us who are working from home, since we don't have teammates or anybody to talk to, we all go to YouTube at some point of time. This could be just to learn something, maybe you want to watch a video, maybe you just want to do something. What she doesn't know is that YouTube, her company or her agency has tied it to the homepage. So when she opened up YouTube, instead of opening up what you normally see, it has been tied into your Citrix homepage. Now this you can customize, you can have it tie into whatever homepage you want. She's like, all right, I knew about a MMA fight last night and I missed it, so let me look at that. So she's like, all right, MMA. So she sees results. Now you can define if some of these results need to be restricted. You can define what the access is going to look like, what this is going to look like, and so on and so forth. But so far, her experience with YouTube has been okay. She doesn't see anything very wrong with it, so she's happy. She goes back, does her work, and now she's like, all right, it's about midday, it's time for lunch. Let me go to Starbucks. Let me actually sit at Starbucks and have a change of scenery. While she's at Starbucks, she's sitting and she sees this person next to her, and this person has a tattoo and it's gorgeous. She's like, all right, let me see. I want to get tattoo designs as well. So she's like, let me type that in. What? And she doesn't know what happened. She just knows that the page was blocked. Now, this is because CSIA was tied into this keyword called tattoo, and her agency decided that that keyword is not something that she should be searching for. There's no reason for her to be searching for this. So you can define this. This is more or less exactly what you're used to with everything Citrix. So you can customize this page. You can define what text you want on there. You can define what this page looks and feels like. But essentially, you have control over what your end users see. Right. Emma's like, fine, I'm on Chrome. Maybe they haven't actually tied into Bing. Bing nobody uses, so let me tie it into Bing. I'm sure they haven't actually tagged Bing. So let me try that. Excuse me. So she goes into Bing and she starts looking for tattoo designs. There we go. Same thing. And she's like, all right, so my company's kind of smart. So she thought she was being smart by trying out another search engine, but this search was actually not tied to the search engine, it was tied to the keyword tattoo. So for some reason, they wanted that thing done, and that's it. So now she knows that she was smart, but her company is one step ahead of her, and they're smarter. The admins have actually blocked it and tied it to a specific keyword. Alright, so Emma's frustrated. At this point, she's like, fine, they don't want me to search, they don't want me to do anything. You know what? I'm getting tired of doing this. I want to go into LinkedIn and I want to start looking for new jobs because nobody wants me to work here. So, fine, she goes into LinkedIn and she's like, let me search for a job. Boom. She was blocked from that as well because her company decided that during work hours, there's no reason for her to be looking for a job. This was again page block. But now, let's say Emma was from HR. She'd actually need access to that search job feature or job functionality feature. So what you can do as an admin is that you can define how much granular access you want to apply. So if it's from HR, you can actually give that app feature access to your HR person, but remove it from some other employee. So you have granular access to all of these features. Alright, Emma is really frustrated. She can't even change her job. She can't search for a job. She doesn't know what to do. She's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try play blackjack. I usually do it. So why not? I go to this site called 777.com on my phone. I should be able to do it here also. Nope, it's blocked. At this point, Emma is super frustrated. She doesn't know what to do with herself. Everything that she's trying to do is getting blocked. All right. So now what? She knows she goes back to work. She starts doing her things again. She has her meetings, whatever. And then her colleague tells her that there is a happy hour again. It's around 6 o'clock. She has to join this poker group and they're going to have a team building exercise. And she goes, well, I was just blocked from doing blackjack, so I really don't know how I'm supposed to access this. So, but she goes to that URL that was provided to her. So she goes to poker.com and let's see what happens. And looks like it is available to her because her company did allow access to this because at the end of the day there needs to be some form of team building and they understand that. So essentially they allowed for this and alright, she's kind of happy now. She's like, alright, at least I can play poker and have my happy hour. So as we just saw, with Citrix CSIA, you have granular control on what happens with your end user experience. You define what your end user can access and you can define what they can actually, they're not allowed to access and so on and so forth. So you have access to whatever, you have admin level, enterprise level security, and you can define what types of applications you want to deliver, what type of services you want to deliver, what type of desktops, and so on and so forth. So it's everything that you're used to with Citrix, just on security steroids. So this is essentially everything I have in terms of Citrix CSIA. And It's just a quick and easy demo, nothing major, but we can have a deep dive as needed. Thank you for joining me here today, and I hope we can all get sassy.
Today was just the tip of the iceberg. We only got to talk about a sliver of our capability around SASE. So as a follow-up, we would love to talk to you about our approach to zero trust for internal applications and services. We would also love to talk to you about how we do continuous authentication and continuous monitoring. And we would also love to talk to you about how we are application aware and how we help optimize connectivity. And then the final thing that I'm going to leave you with is just the thought of really of a unified solution, an integrated solution that tries to meet some of the complex challenges that we see from the modern network and the modern needs of users. And we really think that this approach has two benefits. The first really is around end user productivity, making sure that regardless who the user is, regardless of where they're logged in from or what device that they're using, that we are applying security based on the context and the properties of that user, so they only have access to it is what to the data and apps that they need, regardless of where they at. And we really think that this is the best approach to also minimize risk. Thanks for spending some time today with us. Looking forward to hearing from you soon.